Okay, boys, I just want to share some thoughts about this game. First thing first, the aesthetic of this game. Nothing much controversial, I would say. 8 out of 10, or 9 out of 10, perhaps. I'll give it a 9. Let's see, 9 out of 10. So what I think is that the dev execute this aspect of the game well, probably inspired by Metro 2033. So you can feel the post-apocalyptic theme throughout the game. The environment, the design of the monster, the music, yes, the music. 9 out of 10 for me. Nine out of 10. I think they complement the games very, very well. So most of the review I've seen agree on this. Nothing much to dispute on. Let's move to the gameplay. So the gameplay, yeah, is at least important for me to identify what kind of genre this game is, right? So firstly, I admit I was misled, a little bit misled by the trailer initially. I thought this game was similar to Hades or Dead Cell. It's actually not. It's not even a Souls-like game. The closest resemblance is actually Devil May Cry or Darksider because of the weapon selection. Games like Dark Souls, Elden Rings, Hades, the difference is that you have multiple weapons at your disposal, whereas here you have only 4 weapons. Technically it's 3. So like the Devil May Cry franchise. So when you look at the reviews under the Steam, like many of the reviewers, they are either trolling or they are fucking deluded. They have no idea what they are talking about. Let's see. Look at this guy here. This is a Pixel Souls-like game that came out thanks to the Hypertrain Digital, right? And let's see here. I spent a lot of time playing Souls-like roguelike games in my day. It's definitely one of my favorite Souls-like game on my list. Let's see another one. Okay, let's look at this one. I want to preface this game saying this game is not for everyone, which is correct, not for everyone, and it's actually very well deserved. This game is exceptionally difficult, not really. Could be compared to say Dark Souls for example, but the difficulty of this is strikingly hard and much greater than any of the Souls game, not including New Game Plus. So I have to, it begs the question that is Devil May Cry Dark Souls? Is Darksider Dark Souls? All these people that talk about Souls-like game, they never or never really elaborate what Souls-like definition means. If you can Google the definition. Okay, so this is the definition of Souls-like from, of course, Wikipedia. A Souls-like is a subgenre of action role-playing games known for high levels of difficulty and emphasis on environmental storytelling, typically in a dark fantasy setting. So that I agree with the later part. It's a dark fantasy setting, right? But the problem is that this game has its difficulty, but you cannot say the whole game is generally difficult. Certain aspect of it is challenging, not all. It's not like Dark Souls. When you play Dark Souls, the game from the very start to the end is want to kill you. Die, 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 die. That is Dark Souls. That's I will talk about the difficulty afterwards. Then you will understand why do I say this game is not that difficult. All these guys, right, talk about Souls-like, right? Every game they play with a little ounce of difficulty is immediately Souls-like. Let me tell you, the best way to tell a game whether it's Souls-like or not is that you try it yourself. You try it yourself. Look at this review, right? This is a narrative-heavy action adventure game that shares nearly nothing with a Soul-like, just so you know, except some harder boss fight. Very forgiving death, yeah, because there's a lot of portal in the game. There's one portal right before bosses. So after you die, you can straight return to the waypoint and challenge the boss again. So it's very forgiving. So the reason why I mentioned this is because I want to talk about why this game did not perform as good as other games in the similar category. So in my opinion, there are two things constitute the gameplay: the weapon and the difficulty of the monster, right? So the weapons here are rather straightforward, which are the swords, omen, fist, the fist weapon, the shield, and one big chunky sword, right? So I have no issue with the weapons except for the big sword, right? The fist is definitely my favorite weapon because it has the quickest attack speed. Whereas the big sword, I decided not to touch it the whole game. I hate the fucking speed of that thing, especially the swing of it. It's too slow, man. It's no matter how big the sword is. The problem is the design of this game is that it still does only one damage with a single hit, no matter how big your sword is. And its ability, the explosion, my goodness. The problem with this weapon is that the enemy hit relatively fast and very hard. So there is no reason to use these weapons against most enemies that hit fast and can run away easily. The compensation you receive for trading off the weapon speed is just not there, unfortunately. So this is the only issue I have with weapons, right? It's just not good enough, right? The next thing I want to talk about, which is connected, is the weapon progression. The only meaningful upgrades to me is the Omen Dash ability that does 3 damages, and the movement speed from the fist. Everything else felt insignificant. Like, look at this comment, right? The skill tree is large. It's not really that large, but none of the upgrades are particularly interesting. That is the problem. Why is this an issue? By the time I finished the game, right, I feel like it was I that killed the bosses. That I that finished the game, not the main character, nor the weapon is helpful. Because the weapon upgrade provides little to none impact. That's why I say it's not engaging. Imagine the core gameplay, the weapons and its upgrade do not engage you. The weapon system is simply too average compared to games like Hades and DMC, Devil May Cry. It's very unfortunate. That's all I want to say about weapon progression. You can play the game yourself and decide whether it's true or not. So let's talk about difficulty. 2 things constitute difficulty. Firstly, the design of the monster, their attack behavior. Secondly, the player skills. I finished the game, so I can say that this game is not that difficult, despite the attack difficulty placed by the dev. So the monster, including the boss, have no more than 3 attack sequence. So unless you have a memory of a fucking goldfish, this game is by no means difficult. So I'm not saying that this game is easy. It's actually in the middle, or a little bit over the middle, with some instances being challenging. That's it. Anyone can beat this game as long as you have the patience, which applies to many other games as well. So the core mechanic of this game is that you encounter a monster, you learn about the monster behavior. In the process of learning those things, you either defeat it immediately or you die. And after going through this process, and you finally defeat the monster, and that is where you get your satisfaction. This is the core gameplay in this game, in many other games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Hades. So if you do not have the patience to go through those processes, this game is simply not for you. It's never meant for you. You can play games like Animal Crossing, Minecraft. Nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have the patience, you simply, this game it will be a difficult game for you, no matter how easy it is. Right? So overall, I give 7 for the gameplay, considering the good part of it and the bad part of it. 7. Okay, let's talk about the story. I'll be very frank with you. It's not good enough. The plot of the story is straightforward. It's basically you seeking revenge against someone that took away your child. It's self-explanatory. Other than that, there are 2 things that I want to focus on. The background story of the protagonist and the NPC dialogue. Let's take the example of the Dark Souls and the Elden Ring here. If you played those games right, you will notice the backstory and the dialogue are purposefully being kept to minimal, right? But still intriguing. They basically, what they did is very clever. They leave room for you to imagine, to imagine the skill of it, all those things. But here, right, the dialogue are very shallow, and many of the instances indicates to me that the story is the writing is unfinished. So let's look at the memory shroud. Memory shroud is the only thing I would say in the game that tells you about the protagonist's story. So after watching this, right, you cannot tell me you can decipher anything meaningful from this cutscene. It's impossible. If you do, you're literally selling people snake eyes. You are bullshitting. Okay, that aside, right? there are things that I want to know more, such as the Grim and the Grim Omniscience. But it's just, as you can see, it just stopped there at the end of the game. It didn't explain further. Probably they're going to make a next game and talk about those things. I don't know. So those are the criticism about the story of this game. At the same time, I want to mention that I do feel that they put a lot of effort into establishing the story, but it's not the type that I prefer. So that's why I don't like it. Maybe because I'm being too harsh. So it's up to you guys to decide that. So initially I want to give it a 5, but after considering everything, that is the first game made by this company, and knowing that they put a lot of effort into it, I decided to give this a 6. Right? 6. So overall score I give this game is a 7. A 7. The design of the bosses are good. The attack sequences are well designed in my opinion. I think that is the highlight of this game. The upgrade of the weapons are mediocre. It goes everything by the book. Nothing wrong, but it also doesn't leave you in awe, right? If you understand what I'm saying. So finally, do I recommend this game? I would say that I recommend this game for another me. For others, it's entirely up to you. There are other games out there that is better in terms of the details, the aspects I talk about. But that doesn't mean that this game is bad. It's actually a decent game. So it's entirely up to you guys. That is all from me. Thank you for listening to my rant. Till next time. Ciao.